The first snow had already settled across the small Midwestern town when Harold parked his old Bic outside his son's sprawling two-story home. He had saved for weeks to make the trip, an 8-hour drive through icy highways, because Christmas without family was unthinkable to him. Harold was 72, a retired steelworker, widowed for 6 years, and this houser he had paid for most of it when his son, Greg, and his wife hit financial trouble 5 years earlier. Every month, Harold quietly sent a check to cover the mortgage, never once asking for repayment. He did it out of love, not for thanks. But as he knocked on the door, clutching a gift wrapped in gold paper, he was met not by the warm smell of cookies or the laughter of grandchildren, only Greg's startled face. "Dade, what are you doing here?" Greg asked, blocking the doorway. Harold blinked. "It's Christmas, son. I wanted to surprise you." Greg's wife appeared behind him, arms folded, eyes cold. "We weren't expecting company," she said sharply. "Specially unannounced." Harold's stomach sank. Greg stepped outside, closing the door halfway behind him. "Look, Dad, things are different this year. We just wanted a quiet holiday. Maybe next time." "All right." Harold's hand tightened around the gift. He'd driven 8 hours for this. Snowflakes stung his cheeks, but the real sting was in his chest. Something broke in him as he turned to walk back to his car. The drive back was slow, the snowstorm thickening like the knot in Harold's throat. His hands gripped the steering wheel. The golden, wrapped present sitting untouched on the passenger seat. He replayed Greg's words over and over. "We weren't expecting you." He thought about the years of birthdays, bills, and Christmas mornings he'd held that boy's hand, raised him alone after his mother's cancer. How had it come to this? By the time he pulled into his small one-bedroom apartment, Harold's heart had shifted from sadness to something sharper. He went to his desk, opened his file cabinet, and pulled out the thick folder labeled Greg's House. Inside were the bank statements, the signed agreements, the direct deposit slips showing his money, keeping that roof over Greg's head. Harold had been covering the mortgage in full every month for 5 years. Without it, Greg's life would look very different. Harold sat for a long time in silence, the sound of the heater clicking on and off. Then he picked up the phone and called the bank. "Yes," he said in a steady voice. "This is Harold Thompson. I'd like to cancel the automatic mortgage payment, effective immediately." The woman on the other end hesitated. "Sir, you understand that means." "I understand," Harold interrupted. And for the first time in years, he felt an odd sense of peace. 2 weeks later, Greg called. "Dad, the bank's been calling. They said the last mortgage payment didn't go through. Did something happen?" Harold kept his voice calm. "I decided to stop paying it, Greg. You said you weren't expecting me for Christmas. I figured you weren't expecting my money either." There was a long silence on the line, broken only by Greg's quick, irritated breath. "Dad, this isn't funny. We have bills, kids." Harold cut him off. "You're a grown man with a 6-figure job. You told me you wanted space. I'm giving it to you." Greg's tone shifted from anger to panic. "You can't just. Dad, we'll lose the house." Harold looked out the window at the softly falling snow. "Maybe you'll learn to appreciate what's been keeping it standing." Days later, Greg and his wife showed up at Harold's apartment, faces pale, voices softer than he'd heard in years. They tried small talk, brought cookies, even invited him to dinner. Harold listened, smiled politely, but didn't budge. "I'm not angry," he told them. "I'm just done giving where I'm not welcome." The look on Greg's face was one Harold would never forget. Part shame, part realization. By spring, the house was on the market. Greg had to downsize, moving his family into a smaller place across town. Harold didn't gloat. He didn't have to. The message was carved deep in the silence between them. But something unexpected happened. Greg started visiting more, not for money, but for coffee, for advice, for help fixing the kids' bikes. One rainy afternoon, Greg finally said it. "Dade, I'm sorry. I forgot what you've done for me. I won't forget again." Harold nodded. "It's not about the money, son. It's about respect." That Christmas, Greg insisted on hosting Harold first, decorating the tree early and placing the golden, wrapped gift Harold had brought the year before right under it. This time, it was opened in front of the whole family. Inside, a photo of Harold and Greg from 30 years ago, framed in wood Harold had carved himself. The room was silent, except for the sound of Greg pulling his father into a long, unashamed hug. Harold smiled to himself. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give isn't money. It's the lesson that makes someone worthy of it. And as the camera of life panned out on that warm, glowing living room, Harold thought, if they've made it this far, maybe they'll stick around for the next chapter too.